Glad to have you here today. Thank you for joining me. If you want to follow along, you can join me in the book of Jonah, chapter 2. And we're going to look at two short verses here, beginning in verse number 7. And Jonah's going to, if you were just jumping in and you haven't read anything up until this section, if you started here and then went back and read chapter 1, you'd be scratching your head. Verse 7, when my life was fainting away, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to you in your holy temple. Those who pay regard to vain idols forsake the hope of steadfast love, but I, with the voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you what I have vowed I will pay. Salvation belongs to the Lord. That definitely doesn't sound like again, the fellow from chapter 1 that decided to go in the opposite direction from what God told him to do. Decided he'd rather be thrown in the ocean or in the sea and allowed to drown than to do what God told him to do. And now he's a whole new man. And it's amazing how sometimes the chastisement of God can do that for us. We call it around my house an attitude adjustment. And all of us on occasion need an attitude adjustment. All young people on occasionally, and old ones as well. But we all need one on occasion. At this point, the storm has brought them to the point where they are praying to the God of Israel. Not the main point I want to make here, but just thought I would point that out to you. It's amazing how difficulties and troubles tend to help people find God, help them to call out to Him. And so, unfortunately, we see that too often. That when troubles come, people want to turn to the Lord. You wonder what happened after the seas calmed down. But the point I'd really like for you to make here is, as we noticed, these sailors they didn't want to throw Jonah in. They didn't want to believe that was the answer. Even if they did believe that was the answer, they didn't want to sacrifice Jonah, which they knew this would be. They knew there was no way he could survive being thrown into the sea, probably on a good day, much less in the middle of a storm that twice the passage calls tempestuous. But as soon as they did, it says, then the waters laid down, the rain stopped, the wind stopped, the storm went away. And the reason for that is because the problem here was not that these men had failed to check the weather. It wasn't that they had sailed in the wrong season, or that somehow they had set sail wrong, or rowed the boat wrong, whatever. It was not something of their making. The issue here was a spiritual issue, and the problem that was there again was it wasn't weather, it wasn't it wasn't poor sailor skills. It was Jonah's spiritual condition. Now again, their situation was caused by someone else's decision, someone else's spiritual decision. Nevertheless, the problem was still a spiritual issue. And I want to share with you two thoughts from that we need to be very aware of and keep in our mind. One of them is, first of all, is when we are dealing with difficult times, when we are dealing with tempestuous winds, we need to be open and willing to look and consider, is this a spiritual issue? Certainly we can ask ourselves, have I just made a bad decision? Is this, whatever? But one of the things that we have to be willing, I think, to consider is that somehow is this a spiritual issue? Is there something I have done that has provoked the wrath of God? Is God trying to steer me, guide me, correct me? Is this some way a spiritual issue. Again, I'm not trying to get you to see, the boogeyman behind every door, but again, to be honest, that sometimes, just as in this situation, the problem is caused. It was caused by someone who was spiritually out of the will of God. So we need to be aware of that. Second thing that I notice about this, again, as I've already said, these sailors were as innocent as they could be. Again, it wasn't their spiritual issue. It wasn't their poor sailing skills. It wasn't that they were obstinate and refused to look at the weather or listen to good counsel. They had no reason to believe that their ship wasn't going to safely make this journey. They'd probably made it hundreds of times before. We have no indication that they left the port in a storm. The storm came up because of the decision that Jonah made. And we need to be aware and very conscious and cautious of the fact that sometimes our poor spiritual decisions, our disobedience, can cause difficulty for those around us. I will just use myself as an example. As the pastor of the church, my spiritual walk affects a lot of other people. Not only my family, but my church. Possibly even other churches, other pastors. Hard to tell where the ripple effect would stop. And each one of us, we all have some circle of influence. Again, maybe your family, your coworkers, whoever. But when we get into a place like Jonah of disobedience, then we put them. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes we can put them into harm's way. Again, these sailors, you can't see anything in this text that the sailors did wrong. Their situation, their life or death situation here was caused because Jonah disobeyed God. Disobedience of God always comes with a high price, comes with consequences, sometimes even for those around us. You think about it. Have a good one. We'll see you.